Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome back to a very unusual edition of Grammaticus Books. Today, we're not talking about books or anything book-related. Today, we're going to have both feet firmly planted within the realm of BroTube. Permit me to explain. About 2 weeks ago, I did a pair of videos on the top 10 best science fiction movies of all time based upon science fiction novels. I split it into two videos, 1 through 5 and 6 through 10. Steve Donoghue over on his fantastic channel, I love Steve Donoghue's channel. He's got one of the best channels out there, hands down. He saw those videos, couldn't resist, and did 2 response videos to each one of mine. And in his response videos, he absolutely skewered my top 10 list. He was merciless, he was brutal. And at the end of his second video, he was standing there with his arms raised above his head like Apollo Creed, as I'm Rocky Balboa over there with just a bruised and battered and bloodied face. But at the end of his second video, he also issued a challenge to the channel here to do another top 10 list, but have this top 10 list be the top science fiction movies of all time that were not based upon a book or a novel. The idea being is that we didn't want to go over the same ground, but we think we were both having a lot of fun. I know I was having a lot of fun. And do another top 10 list. I don't think either one of us is going to do a top 10 list for quite a while after this. I know I won't do one for at least a week, but I suspect it'll be much longer with Steve. But I accepted that challenge, and so here's my top 10 list in response. And hopefully at the end of this one, instead of having the end of Rocky 1, we'll have the end of Rocky 2 with a role reversal. That's my goal. But whenever you match wits with Steve Donoghue, you do so at your own peril. So I'm expecting another merciless pounding at the hands of Steve. But anyway, here are my top 10. But actually, I need to go over, we came up with 4 ground rules for our picks. Ground rule number 1, the movie can't be based upon a novel or a graphic novel for obvious reasons. Ground rule number 2, it can't be a Marvel superhero style movie like Guardians of the Galaxy. And we did that just because we didn't want half this list to wind up being superhero movies. Rule number 3 is in the same vein as number 2. You couldn't pick any anime movies because we didn't want this to be a bunch of Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and movies like that as well. So anime is out. And then the last rule that we had to abide by was the movie had to have had an actual theatrical release. In other words, it couldn't be anything too obscure. So those are the ground rules. Let's jump into it. Here's my top 10 going from 10 to 1. Number 10 is Terminator 1. Yes, Terminator 1, not Terminator 2. I know Terminator 2 often gets held up as the best. I'm going with Terminator 1, the original James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he earns his reputation as an action hero who can do action with his clothes on. You've got Linda Hamilton in her iconic role, Sarah Connor. You've got a post-apocalyptic future with an AI that has run amok and taken over the world, something that seems to become more prescient with every year that passes by here in our real world, unfortunately. And you've just got a wonderful movie. And you've got Michael Biehn, and it's a James Cameron movie from 1984. It's dark, it's gritty, it has this great imaginative story with time travel and time travel paradoxes. I love it. I love the grittiness of it. I love that B-grade movie feel of it. And for that reason, it's number 10. So that's it, Terminator 1, number 10. Number 9 is Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan from 1982. It's the best Star Trek movie, hands down. It's a fantastic movie. They brought it in and changed things up after Star Trek 1 because Gene Roddenberry wrote the script of Star Trek 1. And it was too slow. It was too cerebral. So they eased Gene Roddenberry out of that role. They brought in a bunch of writers to come up with a good action space opera. And they based it off of the old school episode Space Seed with Ricardo Montalban playing the role of Khan. And it's just a fantastic flick. It's the best Star Trek science fiction movie of the whole series. They haven't made a good Star Trek movie in 10 years. But this one is wonderful. It's got the original crew and cast. You've got Ricardo Montalban just playing an over-the-top Khan. And you've got this wonderful space opera up on the film. And for that reason, it's number 9. Let me get a drink here, and then we'll do number 8. So number 8 is The Matrix, the original Matrix, which was filmed in 1999. It's Keanu Reeves, the Wachowski brothers. You got Carrie Moss, you've got Lawrence Fishburne, and just a wonderful sci-fi idea that goes up there on the film that's filmed with great effects. They create bullet time. They do a lot of the old Hong Kong kung fu movie wire acts in their action, but they do it a lot better, in my opinion. And they've got a great theme of the movie that's going through there. Again, you've got a post-apocalyptic Earth with an AI and a bunch of robots that have taken over the world, with Neo playing the role, Keanu Reeves, of the cog in the machine, the wrench, the monkey wrench in the gears. And it's a wonderful film. It borrows heavily from William Gibson's Neuromancer, but it's not one-to-one, so I think I'm okay putting it in here. And it's also a movie that borrows heavily from my next pick. And my next pick, number 7, is The Dark City from 1998. This was a neo-noir science fiction film starring Rufus Sewell. Rufus Sewell's not really well known, at least not name recognition, but I'll put his face up over here and you'll recognize his face. And it's also got William Hurt in it and Kiefer Sutherland. It's a dark science fiction film about a group of aliens, a race of aliens that have abducted a city's worth of human beings and then placed them into a 1940s Chicago city that's floating in space, that the human inhabitants don't realize that they're in space. And Rufus Sewell's character slowly becomes aware that he's in this city with these alien beings. And these aliens are running this as a zoo and an experiment to determine certain characteristics about humanity that they think that they need to survive. And they're merciless about how they run these experiments, and they keep wiping everybody's memory. And Rufus Sewell is slowly uncovering his memories, and he's uncovering this mystery. And it's dark, it's wonderful, it's gritty, and it's a great movie, and that's why it's at number 7. And that brings us to number 6. We're almost halfway through. Number 6 is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's number 6 is the top sci-fi movies not based on a novel, and it is the 1987 movie, The Predator. The Predator, directed by John McTiernan, starring again Arnold Schwarzenegger. You've got Arnold, you've got Carl Weathers, you've got Bill Duke, who I love Bill Duke as an actor, Jesse Ventura. I'll say this about Bill Duke. This movie has a lot of great lines in it. I think Bill Duke has the best lines of any actor in this movie. Go back and watch that movie and listen to Bill Duke's lines. He just gets to slay it from top to bottom. This is a wonderful movie that's actually 2 movies in one. It starts off as a military action adventure movie in South America, and then it slowly moves and migrates over into this science fiction horror movie with this alien predator that is hunting this special forces team of veterans led by Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers. And it's just wonderful. It's spectacular. The effects from 1987 are better than 90% of the special effects that are being done today. And the action in it is just hands down some of the best that you're going to see on the screen. And for that reason, it's number 6. So I'm going to take a quick break here at the halfway point to try to regenerate my voice. And then we will move on to numbers 5, 4, 3, and 2. Number 5 is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977, Steven Spielberg and Richard Dreyfuss. I had to get a Spielberg movie up on this list, and I sure as HE double hockey sticks was not going to put E.T. on this list anywhere. That was not going to happen. So we've got Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This movie was actually nominated by Congress and was placed into the National Film Registry as a culturally significant film. That's how big of an impact this film had. A lot of people have forgotten this one, and it's a wonderful film. I mean, it's Steven Spielberg, and it's about people around America who have had these close encounters with alien beings who have come back and become very active in 1970s United States. And they're all feel this compulsion, this drawing to this certain mountain that's located out in the West, where they're all drawn there. And you have this government conspiracy going. You have these alien beings running around. And then you get this big, epic, just space opera reveal right at the end of the movie with the alien ship coming down. And it's just simply a wonderful film. And for that reason, it's in at number 5. So that brings us to number 4. And this is another James Cameron, Michael Beam film. And it is The Abyss by James Cameron in 1989. The Abyss, it stars Ed Harris. It's got Michael Beams. It's a James Cameron film. It was nominated for multiple Academy Awards. It won an Academy Award for Best Special Effects. This is the film where James Cameron develops the liquid water effect, which then is put into such good use in Terminator 2. And it's about a nuclear ballistic submarine in the United States goes missing, and Ed Harris and his crew of divers are hired to go down in their own submarine to try to locate the sub. And a group of Navy SEALs headed by Michael Biehn is put in with them. And they go down to this extreme depth and they're trying to find out what happened to the submarine. And things start to go wrong. And you have this enclosed environment. You've got Ed Harris who's going through a divorce with his wife. You've got that tension. And then Michael Biehn's character starts to, due to the bends, slowly lose his sanity as a Navy SEAL. And you have all this tension building up where James Cameron creates this small, tight little crucible and then just turns the heat up hotter and hotter and hotter. And it's a wonderful movie. It has fantastic effects in it. They made huge sets to film all of these underwater scenes, which were actually done underwater. The crew got so tired and was worked so hard by James Cameron that they nicknamed this film, instead of Abyss, they called it Son of Abyss. That was their term for it. And one of the crew actually almost drowned during the filming of this movie. But the end result by James Cameron, as usual, was just cinematography, cinematic, there we go, that's the word I want, was cinematic brilliance up on the screen. And at the end of it, he brings in this alien encounter. And if you're going to watch this movie, I recommend that you watch the special edition that came out later versus the theatrical edition, because the special edition adds in much more scenes with the alien presence that comes about at the end of the movie that makes it make a lot more sense and have a lot more continuity to it than the original theatrical release had. And for that reason, it comes in at number 4, which brings us to our top 3. And these top 3, you could have almost had any one of these in any order, but I had to arrange them and come up with a 3, 2, and 1. And I've done that, and I feel pretty good about it. So number 3 is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. The second Star Wars film that was ever made. It is, quite simply put, the greatest space opera cinematography movie that has ever been made, period, hands down, not even a discussion. To intimate otherwise is to commit heresy, punishable by being burned at the stake. It is the best Star Wars movie ever made. It is the best space opera ever made. You've got all the original cast: Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Billy D. Williams that plays a great role in here, and it's just spectacular. And for that reason, it's number 3. I don't think I even need to argue why it's here. I think the movie speaks for itself. So that brings us to number 2. And if number 3 is the greatest space opera ever filmed, then number 2 is the greatest science fiction horror movie ever filmed. And that is the 1979 movie by Ridley Scott, Alien, the original Alien movie in the Alien series, starring Sigourney Weaver. And it is just wonderful. The character buildup that Ridley Scott does is great, where he introduces you to the crew of the Nostromo. He gets you involved with the characters, and then he introduces this evil alien presence, and things just go to hell in a handbasket. And the atmosphere that he creates and the acting that he gets out of this and the effects and the look of the movie are just brilliant. And speaking of the look of this movie, one of the reasons it looks so good is because Ridley Scott was familiar with Jodorowsky's Dune. Way back before the original Dune, the 1980 version of Dune, they hired Jodorowsky to film Dune. And this guy, he was a French director, if I've got that right. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on that. He was either French or Italian. They gave him millions of dollars, and he just blew the money when he was supposed to be making a Dune. And they did a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune. But one of the things that Jodorowsky did right was he went out and he discovered H.R. Geiger and all of his artwork, and he discovered Mobius and all of his artwork. And Ridley Scott was aware of this, and he went out and he got Geiger and Mobius and brought them on and had them as part of the creative team in order to make this really dark, creepy atmosphere with the aliens and on board the Nostromo. And it worked to perfection. And for that reason, Alien, the greatest sci-fi horror movie ever filmed, is my number 2. So we're on to number 1. I'm going to take another break here for water. Now, if you've been keeping track of my movies here and the years in which these movies appeared, I think 5 of my top 9 have all been in the 1980s. To Steve Donoghue's point that I'm stuck in the 1980s, guilty as charged. I am kind of stuck in the 1980s. But as Steve Donoghue points out, the 1980s was the greatest decade ever for movies. And that might just be old man Grammaticus talking from a nostalgia viewpoint. But I really do think there's a lot of movies from the 1980s that are just wonderful movies that are better than most of what's being produced today. So with that in mind, what did I pick as the very #1 film, the best science fiction film, not based upon a movie or based upon a novel rather, or a graphic novel? And the answer to that is the 2023 movie. Yes, 2023, Godzilla -1. It is the best science fiction movie, not based upon a novel or graphic novel ever filmed. It is wonderful. And if you think this is just a silly Godzilla movie, Godzilla -1, you could not be more wrong. You couldn't be more mistaken. This is a great movie, a great movie. Godzilla -1 is actually Godzilla +2, which makes it Godzilla #1. My math works out, and why they named it Godzilla -1, I don't know. I think it's a cultural Japanese thing. I've never been able to make sense of the movie title, but this is a fantastic movie. It's Toho Studios, the original producers of Godzilla. The director is, allow me a minute, Takashi Yamazaki. And he puts a masterpiece up on film. He brings Godzilla back to the original Godzilla, the old Godzilla who was just a force of destruction and evil. It's the upright Godzilla with the little tiny T-Rex arms, but the atomic breath effect that he puts into it is the best that's ever been put up on the movie screen. He brings a weight and a gravity and a gravitas back to Godzilla that just you feel like he's there, just crushing the streets under his feet, knocking the buildings over in Tokyo, wreaking havoc. And it looks spectacular. It is still in the theaters. It's been out for months, but it's so popular, it's still in the theaters. It is hands down the best movie of 2023, regardless of whatever genre you're talking about. It's the best movie of 2023, and it is my #1 movie for the best science fiction movies, not based on a novel or a graphic novel of all time. It's wonderful. And the reason it's wonderful isn't because of Godzilla. It's because of the human characters that Toho Studios and got to look at this name again, Yamazaki, put into this film. They grab you, they draw you in, they get you interested in them, you're attached to them, you care about them. Their characters are developed wonderfully, and at the end of the day, this movie is actually about redemption. This movie is set right after the end of World War II, and it's about all of these broken Japanese soldiers who have just lost the war. They were lied to and misled by an evil government. They were fighting on the wrong side. They were utterly crushed on the field of battle, and they're coming back to a broken and destroyed homeland. And they're physically, mentally, and emotionally broken. And they're trying to rebuild Japan. And just as they're rebuilding Japan, with all this guilt and this emotional weight on them, here comes Godzilla as this destructive force. And Godzilla is actually the vehicle to their redemption. He is this force that they can now band back together, and they can fight the good fight. They can redeem themselves from what happened in the war. And it gives them the opportunity to do that good fight, to rebuild their confidence and do something where they're on the side of good and fighting for the right cause and regain their manhood. And that's what makes this story and this movie so wonderful. If you have not seen this film, please, I'm telling you, do yourself a favor. Go out to the movie theater. It's still playing in the theaters, and check it out. You won't be disappointed. It is a wonderful science fiction film. And the shots of Godzilla with his atomic breath coming out and laying waste are just spectacular. I would say if there's 2 flaws with this film, I think it had 2 very minor flaws. The rationale as to why the U.S. military can't assist these Japanese citizens in their fight against Godzilla was kind of weak. And the very, very ending of the movie goes a little too Hollywood for my tastes. But other than that, it is virtual movie perfection up on the screen. You will not be disappointed. One other thing to note about Godzilla -1, it is all in Japanese with subtitles. Please don't let that deter you. I'm telling you, after 10 minutes of watching it, you won't even realize that you're reading the subtitles, and you'll just be fully engaged in the movies. But that's it. That's my top 10 list. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope Steve likes it. I know that if Steve responds to it, that he's going to be merciless and brutal, but that's half the entertainment. I welcome it. It's fun. I like it. And I look forward to Steve's responses if he remembers that we're doing this challenge. But that's it. Please put your comments down in the comments section below. Let me know what you think about my picks, and if you've got any other picks that would fit into that very narrow defined category we've come up with. And I apologize for doing a BroTube video instead of a BookTube video today. My next video will definitely take us back into BookTube. I'm currently have read Starship Troopers, which I did a review on, and I read 5 Lives by The Age of Caesar by Plutarch. I'll do a good one on that. And I'm currently reading Roadside Picnic and Stranger in a Strange Land by Heinlein. I'm in a little bit of a Heinlein kick right now. But that's some little bit of book news to stick in there right at the end to maybe get at least a toehold back into the realm of BookTube. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up and say that take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys in the future. So I forgot something. In addition to picking our top 10 movies, we were also supposed to pick 2 honorable mentions. And my top 10 list fell into place very quickly. I was very surprised at how easy it was for me to come up with my 10 and arrange them in an order that I was very happy with. But I struggled mightily with finding 2 alternates, with finding 2 honorable mentions. I really went back and forth a lot with these, but I did finally settle on 2. And the first one is 1997, The Cube. It was an independent movie. It did have a theatrical release. I did see it in the movie theater with my wife back in 1997. And it's about a group of 5 people who are abducted by the government and then placed into this gigantic underground facility that is a series of interlocking cubes. And the cubes move around, and they're going from cube to cube, and the cubes are booby-trapped, and they have to figure out why their personalities and their backgrounds have been selected in order to try to survive in here. And it's just this giant drama pressure cooker of a science fiction film that I really enjoyed. And for that reason, I'm going to pick it for one of my honorable mentions. And then the other honorable mention I'm going to pick is an absolute straight up guilty pleasure. It is the 1981, I believe it's an 81 film, Escape from New York with Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. It's another John Carpenter, Kurt Russell vehicle, like The Thing, which was their horror sci-fi movie. In this one, though, however, the island of Manhattan has been turned into a giant penal colony. The president's plane has crashed in it, and Kurt Russell has to go in with his iconic character, Snake Plissken, and rescue the president. It's a nice, dark, gritty action, adventure, science fiction movie that I really enjoy as a guilty pleasure, so I'm throwing it in as my honorable mention number 2. I wanted desperately to put The Fly in here with Jeff Goldblum. That was one that I really wanted to put on this list, but unfortunately, The Fly is based upon a short story that appeared in a Playboy magazine back in 1957. So by definition, under our rules, it was ruled out, and I couldn't put it in. But that was one that I really wanted to put on this list. But other than that, that wraps everything up. And so this is going to be Grammaticus saying take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.